With me this morning is a local poet, James McInerney. Good morning, James. Now, how did you actually start writing poetry?
When I've started watching movies, which is a bit weird, I started loving the soundtracks of movies, the instrumental film scores that really helped me get into writing for some strange, bizarre reason. And from there, I kind of started buying the CDs from the films for the instrumental film scores and was using them to help me to kind of write poetry.
So strange, yeah, because I suppose these days, and also for quite a few years, poetry hasn't been a part of the school curriculum, has it? It's not certainly that we. I think even when I was at school, we got Shakespeare rammed down your throat.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
But not so much in the way of poetry. So who actually is your favourite poet?
I haven't really got one. I think the good thing about that is your style is going to be your own. So you're not going to steal someone else's style of writing. Whatever you do is going to be the way you want to write, and you're not influenced by anything else. So it's going to be unique when you put something down on paper, and it's not going to be a copy or a style of someone else that you've read in the past. So I think I didn't really look too deep in. I obviously have read all the old poets, but I like my own style, and I like mine because they're more easy to understand. Some of the old poetry is very complex, so it kind of blew my mind a little bit, and I just couldn't get my head around a lot of it. So I kind of did my own style, and it seems to be working really well because a lot of people like it. So
Good. We'll obviously hear some of it a little bit later on. I'm going to play your first choice of music now. What is it?
It's Sting, because I absolutely love Sting, and one of his favourite tracks, which I think is one of his best, is Fields of Gold.
Sting and Fields of Gold, as we were just discussing while that music was on, a very recognisable voice, one of the more recognisable voices in music. And we both tend to agree that we love the music, but not particularly the man. But you can't have both, can you? At what point did you sort of think, I want to take this beyond a hobby? I want to see if I can potentially make a living at it.
Well, I mean, I kind of done it in my spare time, so I work full time normally to get the wages to pay the bills. And then in the spare time, I started writing. And what I've done over the years is built a huge amount of poems. And I've been sharing them across social networking sites to see what people think of them. And the response was really good. So I thought I've got something there which people like. So that was the kind of starting board for it all. And then after that, I thought, okay, should we try? We've got enough now over the years. Should we try and get it into a book? So and that's how the book came about. And it's been really well. I've done a lot in the media, the magazines, and everything. So it's kind of an indicator that everything is going okay. So I'm kind of following that curve and hoping everything continues to go okay.
Do you think in this sort of this modern sort of ever so busy sort of world that we're in now, do you think there's a place for poetry? Do you think people still value it?
I think there is in a different form. I think if you look at the old poetry like Shakespeare, people tend to look at that and run a mile because the newer generations probably never grew up on it and they see it as something different. But now it seems to be really popular, especially on like social networking sites. People are posting poetry and they're doing their blogs and they're doing everything and posting poetry on their wall with pictures behind them, and they're really taking off. So I think it is, but in a different form, not the way that people know it, in a easier to manage and to understand format, and kind of like reading pages from someone's diary of their feelings and emotions. And I think that's what's really pulling people in because they can relate to everything they read on the page. So I think that it is, but in a different format.
Yeah, I agree with you on that because I remember from school, as I said earlier, having Shakespeare rammed down your throat and going, what on earth is this about?
Yeah, I mean, I look at that now and we've still got all his works in a book and you just read it and you think, all the words are back to front, they're in the wrong place, and you just read it. And if I read something like that and I couldn't understand it, then to me, immediately, I would disregard it as I just don't understand it. And if I read something, I need to be able to either relate to it or understand it, and I just couldn't get my head around some of the old poetry text anyway.
Right, well, we'll take a break for some more music, another choice of yours, and then we'll have one of your poems after this. What can you tell us about this next track?
Well, this is one of my favourite bands from when I was growing up, Oasis, with the old Blur and Oasis rivalry, and it's Stand By Me.
Oasis and Stand By Me. We were just saying a little bit earlier, it was sort of neck and neck between Oasis and Blur at the time, sort of the Britpop time, and we'd also established that James liked Oasis, and I preferred Blur, but that's how it was at the time. You're going to read or recite one of your poems to us now, aren't you?
Try and read is the it's called Autumn Leaves, and I must apologise in advance if it's not that good, but as in reading wise, and it goes like this. I'm but an autumn leaf upon the ground, a remnant of all summers past. The ember sun above me shines to warm me on my bed of grass. My golden skin, now paper thin, moves in rhythm with the wind, and though I have no place to call my home, I still belong to where the seasons roam, be it summer, winter, spring or fall, regardless of the time of day. Oh, how I dance amongst a sea of souls, unafraid of change that comes my way. And though the years may differ each time around, I'll forever be an autumn leaf upon the ground.
Now, a poem like that, how long will that take?
That will take ages, unfortunately, because it takes me a while to write them to classical music. And then, because I'm me, I will go over and edit them and edit them and edit them until I can finish up with something completely different to what I started with, because I'm very strict of when I write. Does it need to say that? What is it trying to say? And, I normally start off in the middle of the poem, start right in the middle, and then add the beginning and then an end, and then change the whole thing. So it does take a while.
So what's the actual process then from start to finish when you're writing a poem? Do you sort of get up in the morning with an idea, or do you sit there and think, right, I've got to write something. What am I going to write? What am I going to write?
Yeah, I mean, I think of what I'm going to write. Some of the personal experience, some of the thinking of how something might play out in words, and then other things go from music. So if I'm listening to a type of instrumental classical music, the music will think, oh, I could write how the style of music is. I think to myself, well, that could actually be an autumn leaf, and then work out how it would play out within the words and kind of take it from there, really.
So you need the music to give you an idea?
Well, yeah, actually, not necessarily the idea, but also I can't write without music for some strange.
Right.
I've tried it. It just doesn't work. I need some kind of music in my head going, and it actually helps me to write the poems better.
Well, so do you think you'd ever get around to being a songwriter?
Well, actually, funny you should say that, because a lot of my work has been covered by YouTubers who have turned them into lyrics and have actually played them on their YouTube account, and they've done really well. One got 19,000 hits, and some have been played in Netherlands on the radio station.
Right.
So they've kind of adapted really well into lyrics as well. So I've just been extremely lucky in that sense. I kind of approached YouTubers and said, here's an idea. This is my poems. I'll give them a selection. Do you want to try turning one into music? Because I've obviously looked at their work first. Do you want to mix a couple of poems together, see how you work? Because some are short, some are long, and they've kind of took that, and then a few weeks later come back with a finished product, and they've been absolutely amazing. Really, they turned out really well, actually. I was surprised. So it's been like, obviously lyrics are the same as poetry. They're all the same, and obviously music is poetry to any artist.
Yes, yeah.
So it all kind of interchanges and intermixes into one, and it's been really took off well, the YouTube sessions that have been going on with the artists.
So do you see you might be moving to songwriting?
Well, a bit of both, really. I mean, when I'm writing something, I actually think of it as lyrics as well now. So I think to myself, how would that sound if someone played it as a song? And I would, very shamefully and badly, sing the in my head, and think, how would that sound? And some of the newer poems have took that form, as in thinking of lyrics as well as a poem. So it's been hard, but it's with the music in the background in my head, it really does help to complete a final poem. But they do take a while. Right.
Well, we've talked then about changing poems into songs, and we're going to have next one of your choice here.
Yeah.
I guess would work really well as a poem, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I think it really would, and I absolutely love this song, and it spent so long at number one, didn't it? Didn't it break the records?
I think it did, yes.
Yeah, it's Wet, 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 and Love Is All Around.
There you go. Wet, Wet, Wet fades into the background with Love Is All Around. Talking to James McInerney, local poet and photographer, and obviously has to have a day job as well, because you can't at the moment make a living on it, can you? You
can't. At the moment, things are starting to go well now, so things are picking up. But you still can't. You've got to pay the bills, and you've got to do everything. So, and we've got 2 kids, so that's a drain on your account as well. But no, it's a part-time thing that I do, but that is becoming actually more than part-time now, because things are starting to pick up.
Exactly. You got a book out, haven't you?
I've got two. One is a collection of poems, which is just a straight. It's basically done two versions: a cheap version, so everyone could buy just the poems, because I was conscious that I think was costing a lot, especially with Amazon, and an expensive version, which is signed and has got about 60 odd photos of mine, and every single poem as well. But actually, that's selling quite well, the expensive one, ironically.
It's good.
Yeah, but I was conscious of the cost, so we done two versions, budget version, and if people want it, the higher priced version, then they can buy it if they want. But we give people the options of both.
And is it selling?
It is, yeah. It's selling really well, actually. The black version, which is the cheap version, is selling well, and so also the expensive one's selling really well. But you don't make any real money on them. More important to me is that my words get out and people buy it and it's on their bookshelf. That way, the word of mouth can be spread, and your poems are out there.
The good part about it is you say you don't make very much on it, but you haven't got the risk of it as well. Amazon are taking the risk with it. So if it hadn't have sold, then
yeah, it is.
You'd have been stuck with a spare room full of books.
And Amazon is probably one of the biggest marketplaces in the world. So to get on there is good, because everyone from...
So is it on Amazon internationally or just in the UK?
Internationally. I mean, if you do, it's Spain, Germany, France, everywhere.
US?
Italy, US, UK, and people have brought them from all around the world. We actually sold them to Australia the other day. So, I mean, they're selling well, and it's the best place to be on Amazon, because it's a recognisable logo.
You couldn't do it without them, could you?
Yeah, it's a recognisable logo, and everyone knows Amazon, and they search on there, so...
Yeah, if you want a book, where do you go?
Yeah, everyone knows Amazon. If you mention a company name they don't heard of, Amazon is the place they know. So I'm very happy that it's on there and it's doing well.
Absolutely super. We're going to have another one of your poems in a minute. After we have heard from one of my favourite artists, and is it Robbie Williams you like, or is it this particular track?
I love Robbie Williams. I think he's very good, especially on stage, and he commands a stage. He was good with Take That, but he's also got a very good solo career. And this one's Robbie Williams, She's the One.
Robbie Williams and She's the One. Radio Nene Valley on a Saturday morning. It's just coming up to 23 minutes to 10 o'clock. Coming up at 10:15, we have Tom Menard with some more local tales for you. Now wins along at 11 with Weekend. With us between now and 10 o'clock, we have local poet James McInerney. James is going to regale us with another one of his creations.
Okay, this one's called Today Not Tomorrow, and it goes like this. Tomorrow's sky will never show such beauty as it did today. The way the sun sets and rises will happen in a different way. The rain may fall again upon me, though it won't taste or feel the same. The wind may be calm and gentle, yet it still won't recite your name. The world will keep on turning as though it knew no other way. It won't have realised how beautiful it was just yesterday.
That's a fairly short one.
Yep.
Do you tend to do mainly sort of, I suppose, one verse?
Well, there's a mix. As I've got further into doing them now, they've turned like 2 pages, because when I first started off, I wasn't really as good at writing as them. But now, some of them are like 2 or 3 pages long. And that's just come with confidence with the writing as you go, the more and more you write. So, but there is a mixture of different lengths. There's long ones, there's short ones, and medium length ones in the book. So it keeps a nice balance. So you haven't got every poem's like 4 pages long.
Is there an ideal length?
I don't think.
Popular with
no,
people?
I don't think. I think sometimes, ironically, the shorter ones are more popular actually, because people want a short, sharp hit of a poem there and then, instead of having to read X amount of pages long. So I think they're probably the more favourite ones. But there is quite a few, obviously, longer ones in there for the people that like the longer poems. But definitely the shorter ones are the favourite.
All right, okay. Bit more music now, and we've had Robbie Williams. Now on to another one from Take That, aren't we?
Yeah, I love Mark Owen. I think his second album was absolutely amazing, and this is Alone Without You.
Mark Owen and Alone Without You. This is Radio Nene Valley, Northampton's hospital radio station. If you want to give us a call, you can, of course. It's Northampton 54 54 54. Or all you need to do is to pick up that handset on your television by your bed, and you just press the little button that says Call Hospital Radio. It's as simple as that. We couldn't possibly make it any easier for you whatsoever. I've got down here, typical day for a poet. Now, you've obviously got to fit in the job as well, haven't you?
Fit in the day job, but also a typical day is getting up. I mean, you never switch off from poetry, so you're always thinking of new things. what you're going to write.
I got a little notebook by the bed.
No, you have, but because I'll be lying in bed at night, and my wife will tell me this. I'll be lying there, so you jump up, and I'm suddenly starting writing down lyrics because I'm lying there and it's dark and it's quiet and my mind's whirring, so I'm suddenly writing something, and it's with you all the while. So every time I go out anywhere, I have a pen and paper in my pocket just in case, because I listen to music, and the best way of writing for me is listening to music whilst walking, for some bizarre reason. Because as you're walking, like into town or walking back with your iPod on, that tends to work even better for me than the walking and the music as well.
So you mentioned this earlier. Do you really need the music then to
Yeah.
prompt you? I couldn't sort of say to give you a subject and you go away and write a.
Oh no, that's why they take so long. Probably because I really kind of get to the point where I overanalyze everything, and it really changes the poem. But I couldn't write about music. No, it's just something. Maybe I've got used to it, and I could probably do it without music. But I'd really struggle because I kind of set in that way that I need music to write, and it's got to be like classical kind of instrumental film scores, and that's kind of how it works. And I've written all my poems that way, which is why everyone really likes them, because there's a lot of emotion in them as well. So,
do you not think though, looking at it from one aspect, it could be holding you back by the fact that you've got to have a piece of music, and obviously that piece of music is going to point you in a particular direction?
Yeah, it could hold me back, but then kind of like when you're stuck in your ways and you do something, my mind is set that way now. So if I tried to do that, I think it would take me even longer to write a poem, because I can write them a lot
quicker. It might be your best ever.
It could be. I mean, I think I have wrote a couple without, but they weren't that. I didn't think they were that good, but maybe that's just me. I mean, people did like them, but it's just me. But I kind of like stuck in my ways, and I have produced some pretty good stuff of music that have gone down really well, and people have kind of bought the book on the basis of some of the poems.
You said you keep changing it and keep improving it and that. Have you ever got to the point where you've looked at the end article and then looked at an earlier one and go, it's far better there than at the end?
I have actually. I've changed it so much. It got to the point of frustration that you think to yourself, I'm getting fed up with it. I have got fed up with some poems. I've been writing and think, I've had enough of this poem, because I've changed it. Every time I look at it, I keep changing it. And then I've reverted back to the original and thought, actually, I do like that in the end. And you can be your own worst critic, really, because you can overanalyze everything. And you get to the point where you think everything you write is not good enough in that poem. And you suddenly, the whole poem changes form into something completely different that you didn't think it was going to be in the first place. So I think everyone who's a writer is their own worst enemy, really, because they're so strict on what they do that they end up editing everything in the hope that it's thinking that it's not good enough. And sometimes it is, but it's just, as a writer, you feel that way, as though people are going to read it and think, oh, I don't like that. And that's just the way you become. And that's the way I have become, unfortunately.
Do you think, looking at it from the viewpoint of the reader of the poem, do you think possibly you need to read a poem a few times before you actually appreciate it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that does work in the fact that people have read my poems and come to me on Facebook somewhere and said, this is what I think it's about. And then another person's read the same poem and got a different thing from it. So that's why the book is called In Between the Lines, is because each poem is there, but you have to read between the lines and see and people can relate to every single poem. And I think that's what each poem has. If you read it again, you see something different. And a lot of people have come to me and said, I love your poem. I've been through a similar situation as the poem describes it. But then someone else will come and say something completely different about exactly the same poem. So I think there's more to a poem than just reading it once through.
Do you like that, or do you sit down when you get that letter or that email or whatever and you go, that's not what I wrote it about?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, because I would never kind of say what the poem's about, because I would never want to tell people when they read a poem, hey, at the top, a disclaimer, this poem is about this, because I wouldn't want them to know. I'd like them to make their own mind up, and when they read it, say, actually, I know what that's about, or I can relate to that because that happened to me. But I would never want to say, this is what the poem's about. And like most lyrics in songs, the artist will never tell you what the lyrics are about. They may do when they're like 30 years down the line, when their career's over, probably.
Yes.
But they will never say what the lyrics, because they're there for interpretation, and everyone who reads them does read something different. And I think that's what will keep your poems going for a long time, is that they are open to interpretation, and it will keep them going for a long, long time, as opposed to just one straight read, oh yeah, that's it, that's done. So I'd rather that people see different things in each poem.
Good. Bit more music now. What have we got?
We've got a very good artist who, if you watch him play, he plays guitar very, very differently to anyone. And he's very emotional in his songs. It's Newton Faulkner and I Need Something.
Hadn't heard that before, but that's quite pleasant. And you say that's pretty much all he's done.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got about 2 albums out, but I mean that's kind of the one probably people would have heard. That's his main. He didn't really have released many singles off the albums. Probably about 2 or 3 out of both albums, which is a bit strange. But that's a lovely song. I like that one.
Right. Mentioned earlier about making a living out of this. You can't at the moment, but hopefully in the future. What do you do otherwise? What's your normal job?
Well, it's kind of building work, really, with my dad, and we do like work indoors, outdoors, carpentry, tiling, plumbing, that kind of thing, and that does pay the bills. And that's the kind of thing we have to. I think any poet would probably really say, unless you're Shakespeare, who's fortunately dead, wouldn't really make a lot of money on poetry. I think more importantly with the money side of things is actually getting the work out there first. And when you're established, then maybe, but it's getting there first. And so things have started to pick up this year for me, so really well. So I think you're never going to make a huge amount of cash because you don't. But I think more importantly to me, the money is the work getting out there and people knowing who you are and what your work is. And that is more important to me.
Well, certainly, it's a starting point, isn't it? If nobody knows you there, they're not going to buy it.
No, exactly. And necessarily buying the book, but also knowing, hey, I love that poem, and that's James's, and I love his work, and word of mouth, then telling other people, hey, do you like this? And I think people are coming more to poetry now, and maybe this is going to be a good thing for me this year, hopefully.
Now, do you think this is what I mean? We hear a lot of sort of negative ideas on social media.
I mean,
I think this is one of the good points, isn't it? You couldn't really have got the I wouldn't necessarily say following, but the people knowing about you without that sort of thing, could you?
Yeah, social networking is the thing nowadays. If you're not on it, you don't really get anywhere, to be fair. And there are so many things, social networking sites, that you can spread your work across a huge audience. And they're really the kind of people that love your work, read it, test it out, give you feedback and comments. Maybe, hopefully, they're all good comments. You get a few negatives because people are like that. But it's your way of putting your work out there and then seeing if you've got an audience. And if you have an audience, do they like your work? And over the years, I have had a really good audience.
Is this on the standard? The Facebook,
YouTube, Twitter, which is a very big one now. And basically having your website and everything set up so that you've got everything there so that people can basically look at your work. Because if you've got a lot of poems and they're on your computer at home and no one's ever read them, you're not going to do anything.
I think actually you mentioned about website and things like that. I think that is incredibly important for anybody now that wants to get a following. If you don't have a web presence or an email, it's incredibly hard work now to actually get hold of anybody.
Well, what I found was that not everyone wanted to be on Facebook. Not everyone wanting to log into Facebook just to see your work. And only just this year, actually, we've just suddenly become with a website because the books have come out and everything's taken off. And you mentioned things like Facebook. So not everyone wants to log into Facebook all the while. They want to just check a website and see what your work is. And it really does help because you can see who's visiting, how many visitors. We've got a guest book on my website which people can sign, and you can showcase all your work, YouTube, and it's just one point for everything to be there, and you can share it with anyone. You haven't got to be on Facebook because although Facebook is big, not everyone's got Facebook, and they don't want to log into Facebook.
No, very true. To be honest, I do find that annoying when you click a link to find out information about people, and the only way is through logging in.
And you have to log in, and you don't want to all the time, do you? And it can be off-putting. But with the website, you've got everything non-login. You just go to the page, and it's all there. So
right. So what is that?
We've got a website. It is James McInerney. It's McInerney.wix.com/poetry. But if you Google, you can actually Google search me, and I do come up quite a lot on Google. If you type in James and then Wix, W-I-X, poetry, it comes straight in there. But say if you wanted to find me, I am James McInerney on Google, and everything I've ever done because once you put it out there into the world,
it stays there forever, doesn't it?
It does. And everything I've done, I even found some places I hadn't even done anything in, and suddenly I'm appearing everywhere else. So,
Are you turning up on the price comparison searches as well yet?
Ironically, my book on Amazon, the new one has just come out. Somebody's already selling a used copy for £19 instead of £7. So I think people, which they haven't even sold it. So I think they're just edging their bets, hoping that it will sell well, and they can sell a copy for £19 instead of £7, which I was a bit confused about. Yeah. It's a major bookstore, but they basically had a copy on there for £19, and it's only retailing at £7. So I think someone's trying to cash in, which I thought, fair enough. If they want to sell them, they've got to sell one at least. I get the money for whatever they sell, but they're charging like 3 times the.
I think the thing is, I think it could be someone just seizing an opportunity in that it's so easy to click on the wrong box.
Yeah.
And somebody quite possibly will end up paying the £19 instead.
For instead of a £7.
Yeah.
So it is, when you put your work on the internet, it is weird because you suddenly find yourself everywhere. I have Google searched myself sometimes, and you just think, how do you appear in half of them? And you do find some weird. I get a bit paranoid now that when you Google search, you're going to come up somewhere and think, how did I come on there? So it is a bit strange. But that's the website, and everything I've done is on there. There's examples of my works from YouTube, and some actors and actresses from the US as well. Have been in kind of like TV shows and movies. Like one of them's a Bond girl, and she voiced one of my poems. That's on there as well. So I have done quite a lot with actors and actresses as well from the US.
Things are looking up.
They are, yeah. It has been really busy, but worth it every single time.
Right, let's take a break for a little bit of music, then we'll come back and have probably a final little chat. Mm-hmm. What have we got now?
We have, I think it's Deep Blue Something and Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Much a one-hit wonder there, and that was Breakfast at Tiffany's, just coming up to 4 minutes past 10. Guest on the programme this morning is local poet James McInerney. James, you've got a book out, we know that.
Yep.
That's available on Amazon at this very moment. And more information, obviously, on your website.
Yep.
Given that address, but basically just tap into James McInerney, poet, on Google, and that will get you all the information you need. But a book's not enough, is it? You need to get your information out all over the place.
Yeah.
You've been on with us, you've been on Radio Northampton, you've been on Inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you need to do to get the poetry out there?
Well, I don't know really. It's a kind of working it out as you go along, because the problem with it is it's poetry, so you're in a different category altogether. It's not a novel like a Stephen King novel where and it's not a indie band or a music band. It's something completely different. So kind of, if it was a novel, and it would probably be a lot easier as a book, but because it's poetry, it's quite hard to work out what category you fit into and where you can basically promote your work. So it is kind of like putting the feelers out and asking people, I write poetry, this is what I've done, this is where I've been on. Do you think that would fit in with you? Is it appropriate? And so a lot of times you get no, and a lot of the times you get yes, and then you work from there, and then you go to the next thing, and you carry on until you feel as though you've achieved something great. But I say it is working out where you belong and what places will allow your work to be there. And if they say yes, then that's another plus, and then from there you try and get something else from that, and it just kind of works from there. So I don't really know where's next. It's just kind of working it out as it goes along. Really.
Well, social media obviously is big on that. Yeah,
social media is the thing where you can present your work to the world. But the problem with social media is that you can't really speak to the big businesses. That's like at people level. The big businesses, you need to be emailing people and asking. But so social media plays a big part in promoting your work, but then you've got to work out where next you're going to promote your work in the real world as opposed to the virtual world. And then that becomes to going to people, speaking to contacts, and kind of working out where you fit next is the kind of thing. But social media does play a big part, but so that is promoting your work at people level. Then you've got to kind of work out the business side of it, which is a different kettle of fish altogether.
Yeah. So, got a book out.
Yep.
You're travelling around radio stations, and where can the public see it? Are you going to be out there?
Well, hopefully, I've got something in the pipeline, which is either going to work or is not, but it looks like it's going to work. I can't say too much yet because I haven't got the kind of green light on it yet, but that could be an appearance, yeah. And kind of like with my poetry and doing things and meeting the public and getting my word out, word of mouth, as opposed to just socially on the networks. And I think that there's a big difference.
Is that frightening?
It is scary because I've never done it before, and it'll be something new. But I've learned that with this, everything I've learned is kind of like as I go along, and it's all new things I've never really done before. There's a lot of duplicated things, but a lot of things I'm kind of learning stuff every single day as I go along. Is trying to work out what to do next and how to do these things. So it is scary. Yeah, it really is scary. But I just kind of think of the long run and the final thing of how it will help me in the end. So get beyond the nerves, and the more things you do like this and the magazines, then you kind of get used to it. So it isn't so bad. And I remember the first time I was on the BBC Northampton, I was absolutely petrified on the radio, and but it sounded okay. But I just remember being really, really nervous. And the more that I've done with the radios, the more easy and comfortable it gets. So I think it's more doing the things and getting used to them, and learning as you go along, kind of thing, which kind of gets rid of the nerves.
Good, excellent. Bit more music.
Yeah, this is one of my favourite tracks as well, which when it comes on the radio you can't help but singing to it. It's Cure and Friday I'm in Love.
That was, who was it? Oh, yes, Cure. It was. Yeah, The Cure and Friday I'm in Love. So memorable, I'd completely forgot it. Well, that is all. Our time is almost up. In fact, that time was up about a quarter of an hour ago, near enough. But we're going to play one more track, which is Crowded House and Weather With You. But let's just have a quick reminder of the website.
Yeah, the website is James McInerney, says McInerney.wix, which is wix.com/poetry, or you can Google James Wix poetry and it comes up.
Right. Can we have one last poem?
Yeah, one last poem. Okay. Okay. It's going to be called I Danced a Merry Dance Today. And it goes like this. I danced a merry dance today as the sun came out and shone my way. All the clouds above, so dark and grey, floated beyond the horizon without delay. And the blowing winds, once a raging storm, became but a whisper of silence amongst the breaking dawn. For today I learned what I've always known, that even when there's no one around, I'm never completely alone. And as I closed my eyes, I slowly moved and heard every single step like a spoken word. For the world can seem such a peaceful place when fear is consumed by its loving grace, turning all my lonely thoughts into a gentle sway. Oh, how I danced a merry dance today.
James McInerney, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.